we're way behind. And before we can even talk about movement quality and training, I think we need to agree on an outcome. And I think that a surprisingly high number of coaches and players can't even agree on what a good batted ball is, despite irrefutable evidence. So for me, it's like we're so far behind that we can't even agree on what a good outcome is in training or in a game. So the first question is, okay, here's all this information, how do we actually use it? And the knee-jerk reaction by a lot of guys in baseball is, I've been doing this my whole life without it, I obviously don't need it. But the truth is, it's extremely powerful, and it's helping coaches help their players at various levels, and the best in the game are doing it really, really well. And honestly, it's something that is going to be just the gold standard, or just going to be standard in the near future. So that's kind of where we're at now in the early stages in hitting, where we have to convince coaches and players that this stuff matters. And one thing we do with all the technology is we collect all this information so that we're not leaving any stones unturned. At the end, we can look at the batted ball profile, right? I can look at how you hit the ball to your pull side. Then we can look at your kinematics, how is your body sequencing, how fast are you moving, what's the speed gain between segments, and then we can tie that in with the strength assessment. How do you move, right? Where are your mobility restrictions? Are you stable? Are you able to coordinate rotationally with velocity, right? All these things all work together to answer the problem. So we don't have to guess anymore, because hitters are infinitely frustrated by the fact that when they go hit with a coach, they might get A, B, and C swing flaw, right? They say, okay, here are things that are wrong. They go hit with another coach. It's like, okay, these things are wrong. But as a hitter, it can be frustrating, because you talk to a 23-year-old pro, they've had like 10, 12 hitting coaches in their life, right? What we can provide is when we give our ideas and we say, I think your bat path is this, or I think that you're not doing this well, I can literally point them to the data and say, this is exactly what's happening. And it's also for them, it's like some clarity in an area where it's just been gray their whole life. It's always just been, here's my opinion from a coach. And if we can actually say, this is where you are, and more importantly, this is where you need to be, now let's start to build towards that. I don't know why Mark. It's going to become a situation where if you don't understand this stuff and you don't know the language and you don't know how to analyze this data or collect this data, you're simply just not going to be able to be a hitting coach. As we continue to measure more stuff and we start to get objective in our analysis of hitting in general, we can start to actually push everything forward when we just kind of raise the bar as to what we accept.
Howdy you all. We've got great time to talk hitting again. Tell us a little bit about, I show a bunch of different tools here, and you can kind of take them in any order you want, I guess, but like you said, you certainly use a lot of tools to help people get better, and then you record the data, as you were mentioning, and some of this is even designed to measure your data here. So,
yeah. So I'll start with the technology. The ones we use primarily are a hit tracks unit or a hitting Rapsodo, which are essentially batted ball launch monitors that give you data on the batted ball. So in layman's terms, every time a ball is hit, we're going to know exactly how hard it was hit, at what angle it was hit, both vertically and horizontally, so that we can basically get like a real objective understanding of the batted ball. So when hitters come in and they get an assessment, we'll get 300, 400 batted balls, and we can analyze that data to get a batted ball profile and start to really learn about how they hit the ball, right? So where do they hit the ball the hardest on the field? Where do they not hit the ball the hardest? That's something that's really common, is we'll see hitters that can maybe hit the ball really hard to left field, but as we chart their exit velo to the opposite field, you'll see it drop off a ton, right? So we can look at that. We can look at how hard you hit the ball at different angles, right? So I was talking about how I used to hit the downward chop swing. And when guys have a downward chop swing, what you'll see is that their hardest hit balls are always on the ground. So you'll look at their peak exit velocities are always at -10, -5 launch angles down on the ground. And as the balls get higher, they have a lot more spin and a lot less velocity.
Now, is that always on a tee, or is that with the front toss, or is it from a pitch ball?
It's from a pitch ball typically. We'll do it in front toss as well, but as far as the collection process for analysis, I'm only looking at the balls that are coming out of a pitching machine, or they're being thrown at game speed mostly, because that's the information that is going to help them perform in game, which is ultimately what matters.
What about I see these funky glasses here?
Yeah, that's something we do a lot of research on vision and gaze tracking. So we essentially have hardware and software that we didn't design, but we can put it on a hitter and it can show us in three-dimensional space where they're looking and how they're tracking the ball. So we're doing research now on like the best in the game versus amateurs, like guys that can hit over 200 in the minor leagues versus perennial big leaguers. Like we're starting to see maybe there's a difference in how they're visually tracking pitches, because as we have collected more data, like we look at the hitters that are in AA versus the highest level, physically their bat speed is similar, their bat path is similar, but there's something else. There's something perceptually and cognitively, and I think a lot of it has to do with vision. So we are doing a ton of research right now on vision and perception in hitting, and then ultimately designing some sort of like virtual reality training, which is a pipe dream, but something that our sights are on, pun intended.
Well, that gives us a little plug to make sure everyone watches Dr. Don Teague, that does talk about vision training, and he does all kinds of different exercises on doing that. And he, worked 30 years with the Yankees there.
Yeah, he's awesome. He's awesome. And the other thing you're seeing here is a diamond kinetic sensor. We use that, and we also use a blast motion sensor. Range that's ideal for professional hitters is typically 5 to 15, and that's 0 would be perfectly level with the ground, and 5 to 15 is ever so slightly up. And by no coincidence, what most pitches are coming in at about that same angle. So the blast motion or diamond kinetics tool is extremely valuable and actually pretty cheap too. I always encourage parents and coaches, players that reach out to me about a low budget solution to using tech into their training. I think those are also really good options. And you can also track bat speed over time.
Well, thanks, Jason.
Thanks a lot, Andy.
Okay, thanks.